Reactive training systems.
The first thing I want to talk to you guys about for this week is overload work. We get the question quite a bit, does overload work actually do anything? Now what they're talking about when they ask me that question is specifically stuff like squat walkouts or static holds in the bench. That stuff does do something, and you see a lot of lifters, not a lot, you see enough lifters really think highly of work like that. I know Dr. Fred Hatfield used to use that in his squat training. I know Jen Thompson really feels like she gets a lot out of it in her bench training. So, you know, far be it for me to criticize work like that. You know, when you have lifters who've tried everything and they kind of hit on this and say, when I do this, my lifts are better. That's enough to at least pay attention to it. You know, and I've done it myself. I've had some of my lifters do it. I think that there's a benefit to it. Now, for the system that I use, and that's an important contextual change, for the system that I use and the way that I write training and the way that our programs are built, I find that a lot of times the work that we get the most benefit from in terms of overload work, in terms of superloading work, is not necessarily those static hold type movements, but movements that allow you to take a super maximal weight and move it through a full range of motion. So I really like movements like squatting with knee wraps, or for example, benching with a slingshot, because it allows you to take that full weight and you're able to handle that entire super maximal load either on your back or in your hands for the full range of motion. Whereas if you take something like chains, the actual weight on the bar varies. So the weight, say that in the chain bench, the weight that you feel in your hand is dynamic and it changes throughout the range of motion. I feel like you get a better transference, you get a better training effect if that weight in your hand is constant, the same way that it will be for an actual full range of motion bench press, which is why I like things like the slingshot a bit better than I like chain work. Now, that's always just the starting point. That just gets our foot in the door. It's a good place to start, but you have to test these movements and see what your response is as a lifter. For example, I know when I was working with Mark Robb, he always got a lot of good results from reverse band squatting. And honestly, reverse band squatting is one of those movements that I've just not had that many lifters find any success with it. So it wasn't one of the first things that we tried, but it was a thing that Mark recommended that we put in his program, and we did, and it produces results for him. You know, it doesn't produce results for some other lifters, but that's part of figuring out what works best as an individual. And going through that process, that's critical information. Like, that's the best kind of information, because it's information that's specifically suited to you as a lifter. So as far as whether overload works or not, like, yeah, I do think that it works. It works in certain contextual situations, and you can start with those movements that, you know, make the most sense, that seem to have the best transfer, but you've got to test and you've got to start figuring this stuff out, figure out what applies best for you as an individual.
Reactive training systems.